Hello and welcome to DawnNews English with 20 minutes. I'm Nadia Naqi with you. I have with me Nayab Ali, who's transgender rights activist. There has been a lot of focus about the transgender rights, especially 4 years after politicians have raised objections on the law, on the bill that was passed earlier. And there has been amendments that have been proposed. Some term it as anti-Islamic. Some people think that, this is a Western agenda that is being promoted through this law. We have with us Nayab Ali, who's going to let us know and all of our viewers what exactly are those objections regarding the transgender rights. Why do you feel, Nayab? First of all, thank you so much for joining us. I do understand these days you have been running to the courts because, if I'm not mistaken, you're contesting this in the court. I'd like to know, what are exactly the objections that have been raised by certain politicians on this law?
First of all, thank you so much, Nadia, for inviting me in your program. So let me directly come toward your question. So the majority politicians who are raising question on the Transgender Rights Acts, they belong from the political and religious parties, the minority religious parties, and their the political campaign always comprises on such kind of rumors and controversies they made on the basis of religion. So currently, because it's a political season in Pakistan, and everybody is trying to get the empathy in their voters, and they want to enhance their voter bank. So they just stand out their political agenda towards ourselves, towards a vulnerable community that already oppressed in the Pakistani society. So they made some kind of the controversies and myths around the Transgender Act. They spread, I will say it's not misinformation, but this is the disinformation that they spread, that Transgender Rights Protection Act is promoting homosexuality, and they are promoting homosexual marriages. And on the other than that, the very common myth they promoted in Pakistan, like according to Transgender Right Act, male can get the CNIC, National Registration Card of a female. So this kind of myths, they are roaming around, and their main agenda and their main point of objection is like how you can allow a person a self-perceived gender identity. So basically, it's
on this self-perceived gender identity, I do understand, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers know exactly how it happened, and even in the Senate, the way it was being proposed, the amendments. But the common question amongst Pakistanis after what has happened, these objections that have been raised, and there was a lot of discussion on social media, Nayab. I'd be glad if you could answer this one. They say that, when they say a male has a self-perceived identity of his sex, saying that he is a female Khwaja Sara, is based on the fact that I had a feeling, I feel like a female. My soul is of a female, but I am probably caged in a male body. So, this is what a normal Pakistani feels. I'll be very frank that this is something that is going to promote homosexuality. So how would you actually describe this? That what do you mean by a feeling of a transgender, of being female? This is what I wanted you to explain.
This is very important. I think we definitely need to dispel myths which are around this aspect of self-perceived gender identity. So let me clarify this concept. So initially, we need to understand what the psychology is, and after understanding the psychology of a person, so you will understand that a person can express their feeling as per gender constructive norms. So if a person who have the biological identity of a male person, so definitely after some time attaining living sometime, and that person can feel himself or herself in a different gender identity. So this condition is called gender dysphoria. So we have two main classification of diseases, which is internationally recognized and authentic. It's called DSM and International Classification of Disease. So their latest version, DSM-5 and ICD-11, they said if a person feel that is caged in a wrong body, so definitely that this is a mental stage, and it is very normal to live with that condition. So this is it's a psychological matter. So it is very normal, and it is very true, and there is no medical terminology that can determine the gender of person. It's the only thing that person can express their self as in feeling. So there is no chance of a homosexuality. Nobody attaining the third gender identity card can get married. So it's totally anomaly and disinformation which is spreading that a normal person can the transgender person can get married. If a transgender person can't get married, definitely homosexuality is not protected or promoted.
All right, so tell me one thing, how many transgenders actually, although we know we don't have the right kind of figure, but we have an approximate figure, transgenders in Pakistan, how many of them exist actually?
For transgender people who are registered with the government of Pakistan, their National Statistic Bureau gave a figure of 10,418 transgender person, and likewise there is another program of government that called National AIDS Control Program. They gave a figure of 53,000, but the organization which are working on transgender persons, they shows an estimate that over a million persons who are transgender person, they are living in Pakistan, but because of the transphobia and the lack of services and acceptance of transgender community, the majority of people don't get registered themselves with the NADRA. So there is no exact number, but you can estimate it.
All right. Yep. So another aspect of this is that when a baby is born, right? So a baby is either with the orientation, either the baby is a boy, a baby boy, or a baby girl. However, where at the time of birth the third gender is represented very well. And so most of the right-wing political parties feel that those are the real ones, and the others that you just mentioned about psychologically being caged in another gender's body is what they are not accepting. So do you actually do you differentiate between this category and the transgender category that you belong to?
Nadia, it's when we read the Transgender Rights Protection Act, we came to know about transgender person. Transgender is a term that is used as an umbrella. So it covered the all aspect of being different from male and female. So when we were working on the law, we try to protect the all vulnerable groups which are marginalized on the basis of their gender or sex. For example, what you are talking about, it is a term used intersex people who are born with ambiguous biological organs or biological parts. So it is possible, like we ever seen a 4-finger-handed person and 6-finger-handed person. So it is a possibility for being born with incomplete body parts. So there are it called intersex people. And on the other hand, when in Transgender Person Act, when we define transgender, we put first definition as of intersex person, and later on we define eunuch person, the person who is more born as a male but undergoes castration or genital excision. And later on we incorporated another definition, the person who is different from their sex assigned at the birth. These are the three different definitions Objections, which covers the all aspect. We don't differentiate between that, but the issue is the religious wings parties, they are using arguments of science and religion parallel. So on the one other hand, they are saying like, oh, we have acceptance of intersex people in Islam, and on the other side they are saying, hey, we need to include medical board, which is totally science. So on in many things they are not following the intersectional approaches. For example, the being transgender isn't also scientific thing, it's a medical condition. And on the other hand, being a eunuch isn't also medical and scientific condition, and being an intersex is vice versa. So they are also confused between the intersex and transgender people. So let me tell you a very funniest thing. When we were working on law, so we tell the parliamentarians, hey, you need to include intersex people. So it is a very funny incident. I was sitting in the parliament and in a standing committee, and I was telling, hey, you are just talking about transgender, so we need to include intersex person as well. So they one of the senator from religious party JUIF, she said, La hawla wala quwwat, what are you talking about? You are talking about sex in the parliament. So I said, excuse me, ma'am, do you understand what the intersex is? So she was actually confusing intersex and intercourse. This is the level of their understanding. And just recently, if you read the new law, which is the amendment is proposed by Senator Fawzia Arshad.
That was on social media, and it spoke about urination and all, and I was like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, exactly, because they are fighting to being who is the most idiotic person in the Senate. So they are fighting for, it's a fight between JUI and the PTI and the rest of political parties. So this is happening. The lack of understanding.
What happened to that amendment that she proposed?
Definitely, it's in the Senate Standing Committee, and the Senate Standing Committee is discussing on it. But the matter is, it's their lack of understanding and lack of knowledge on the topic and on the transgender identity, and there the lacking in the knowledge, it results in our suffering in our operation, because they are using an argument, hey, we don't know, we think that this is not happened. So so these kind of things are happening in the Senate and
amongst all the parliamentarians. What I want to know, Nayab, is, do you not feel that in a country like Pakistan, it's very difficult to say that everyone is for real, right? There might be some fake using using a transgender identity and trying to probably attain as much as they can. And I'm so sorry that I have to resort to this, but this is how the situation is amongst the transgenders in Pakistan. I do understand they are not accepted by the society. They do not qualify to even get themselves enrolled in reputable or even a government education system, because people do make fun of them. And therefore, they are left with probably dancing in events, and that's how they earn, or begging on the streets. So I happened to interview a lot of them, and some of them, opened up that they weren't transgenders, and I couldn't identify the real transgenders. Were the one who actually took me to a place in Karachi, to one of the traffic lights, and said, these are the ones who are not real transgenders. And I'm not talking about right now, it's about years back, like probably it could be 8 or 9 years back. And that was the time when there was a lot of street crime happening in Karachi. I mean, it happens now too. And those were the people in the garb of transgenders that they were resorting to this, street criminal activity. How do you differentiate? And that is why probably some people are of the opinion, let's have a medical board set up to understand
I will answer your question in two parts. First of all, you are talking about imposters that might, they take the shell of or a cover of a transgender person. So I humbly disagree with that because it's not happened. So why a person will choose their identity as a transgender person and actually he is not, just to get murdered, just to to get refusal or denial in the services. For example, being a transgender in Pakistan, when you will go to the hospital, doctor will refuse to give you the medical treatment, and just for not for the sake of the begging or prostitution or dancing, anybody will join the transgender community. It is not real because there is no privilege is associated with the transgender identity. For example, there is no job quota is available. So when it comes to the transgender community, and the transgender community, they point out their other fellows. As I told you earlier, there are three types of transgender community, transgender people. We define in the law. So they are different, and the community is as much illiterate as our the common our citizens are. So let me tell you a thing. When we were working on that law, so we go to the deras and the community places, and we used to tell them, hey, there is a bill of right is coming. So they said, what bill are you talking about? We pay our electricity bill, utility bill regularly, so this is the level of understanding. So they, the unique people, they point out, oh, transgender people are not real, trans or quadriceras, and the transgender people will point out the unique.
So
and
you feel there are no imposters,
so,
it's just the understanding because naturally even they are not very literate, right?
Yeah.
So towards the end, it's my last question to you, Nayab. What is happening in the courts?
So we are fighting for our rights, and definitely we got we got our rights already. But some people who always they want to be act as a gatekeeper. So they think their mentality and the male masculine patriarchal system, they always want to want to be dominant, and they said, hey, we are the right people and we will tell you what are your basic rights, which is same happening for the women rights movements as well. So the religious wing parties are saying in the courts like, hey, if you are following the certain criteria, you have rights. So this is the debate which is going on, and I am party in the federal Shariat court as well, and we are defending our identity according to the religion and the science and the medical field. But in the court, definitely we are very hopeful that we will win the case because we have conducted our researches and enough arguments for that. As in the start of my conversation, I mentioned this is totally a political move, that they are, they are creating sympathy and enhancing their vote bank on the name of Islam in Pakistan. So they think because they got an issue before you can say before 3 or 4 months, who knows the Senator Mushtaq. So after this controversy and after this campaign, so everybody is coming to know about Senator Mushtaq and Aurea Maktool Jan stuff. So this is a political and the cheap publicity stunt they are making, and they are putting our life on threats involving some religious extremists such as Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan also issues statements.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, our time is over, but Nayab, thank you so much for joining 20 minutes on DawnNews English. We shall keep in touch to know what exactly happened to the case, and you're hopeful that you're going to get justice.